Gimmick, released in Scandinavia as Mr. Gimmick, is a platform video game developed and published by Sunsoft and originally released in Japan for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1992. The story follows a small green creature named Yumatero, who was mistakenly given as a toy to a young girl. After the girl's toys come to life and whisk the girl away to another dimension, Yumatero gives chase to save her. Playing as Yumatero, the player must maneuver through a variety of levels using the protagonist's star shooting power to defeat enemies and progress the game. In order for Gimmick to rival the quality of games on the then new Super Famicom, director Tomomi Sakai required a large staff and used innovative techniques to create high-quality graphics and sound. The graphics were handled using advanced tileset algorithms, which freed processing power so more detailed graphics could be drawn on the screen. The game uses an expanded sound chip, which provided more sound channels than a standard Famicom game cartridge. With this special chip, composer Masashi Kajiyama was able to create a more advanced score. The soundtrack crosses multiple genres, with Kajiyama describing it as a compilation of game music. Gimmick received mixed reviews and a lack of interest at release. Distributors were more interested in games for the new 16-bit systems, so Sakai found difficulty in getting the game localized outside Japan. Sunsoft of America did not approve of the game for a North American release due to its quirky character design. Ultimately, the only distributor that imported the game was Swedish distributor Bergersala, which released it for 1993 for the Nintendo Entertainment System in small quantities across the Scandinavian market. Critics both praised and criticized the game for its difficulty, and some thought the game was designed exclusively for children due to its character design. In retrospective reviews, Gimmick was received more praise. It was re-released in Japan in 2002 for the PlayStation, and a remake developed by XA Arcadia was released for the XA arcade system in the late 2020s. A remaster of the game was released on July 6, 2023 for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Windows, and Xbox One. On June 20th, 2024, a sequel was announced titled Gimmick 2. It was released for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Windows, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X/S on September 5th. Synopsis and gameplay. Gimmick is a platform game that places the player in control of a small green creature named Yumatero. The story begins during an unnamed young girl's birthday. Her father is normally busy with work, but he is able to spend time with her family for the special occasion. Earlier, he had gone to the store to purchase a new toy for his daughter. Yumatero had been wandering the toy store and became confused when her father came in. He hid with stuffed toys that looked like him, but was picked up by the girl's father. When the girl opens the Yumatero gift, she is delighted. Yumatero becomes the girl's favorite, and so her other toys no longer feel loved. One night, the toys come alive and take the girl to another dimension. The only one left is Yumatero, who follows the toys in search of her. The player, as Yumatero, must venture into the alternate dimension to rescue his new owner. The player character can jump and spawn stars above the horn of his head. The star is a central mechanic to the game, being necessary to defeat enemies found while also doubling as a platform, capable of being ridden to reach otherwise inaccessible areas. The player must make their way through 6 stages and 6 bosses to complete the game. Once the 6th boss is defeated, it is revealed that the girl is still missing and the game restarts from the beginning. To truly complete Gimmick, the player must find a hidden area in each stage where a magic item resides. If one can obtain all the magic items without losing every life, i.e. using no continues, a secret stage would appear in which an extra boss must be beaten. Only after this boss is defeated is the game completed in full, with a cutscene showing Yumatero rescuing his owner and leading her back to the real world. Development. Gimmick was conceived by lead designer Tomomi Sakai, who put a variety of ideas into the programming of the game, such as making it in the style of an arcade game, with the gameplay occurring within the upper part of the screen and the score displayed in the lower part. The game may have been developed with Microvac's mini-computer, but Sakai claims he could have made the game how he wanted regardless of what equipment was used. In order to rival the quality of Super Famicom games, a large staff was required. He had always thought about developing his own game with Yoshiaki Iwata and Hiroyuki Kagoya, who were involved in designing Blaster Master, a previous Sunsoft title. The two, however, were paid very little for their involvement in making Gimmick. The characters were designed by Sakai and Kagoya. Sound programmer Naoshi Morimoto, who had left Sunsoft shortly before development of Gimmick, would work for Sakai as an outsourcer. The process of using the 256 graphic tiles on the NES was handled with special programming techniques. The team streamlined the process by dividing the number of tiles into two groups of 128 and separating them into enemy characters and protagonists. By further dividing the tiles into four groups of 64, they were able to reduce graphical processing and switch out tile sets to use as background cogs and floor animations. Sakai left Sunsoft prior to the game's release due to his dissatisfaction with the game's opening being rewritten and his name being removed. Game music. Sakai and Gimmick's composer Masashi Kagayama held meetings over telephone regarding the music, the former being in Nagoya and the later in Tokyo at the time. With the two having similar musical interests and Kagayama being able to plug his Macintosh synthesizer into the phone, it was easy for Kagayama to share with Sakai how the music sounded. Even though Kagayama had already felt comfortable with the music layout and controls he used for two PC Engine games, OutLive and Benkai Gaiden, Sakai provided him with an extended sound source. Sakai encouraged Kagayama to push the limits of the sound chips, and so Kagayama used the maximum amount of sound channels possible. He jokingly described composing the music for Gimmick as feeling more like putting a puzzle together than actually music competition. Gimmick's soundtrack ranges in several different genres, from pop music to bass-driven acid jazz, fantasia, dramatic hard rock, and jazz fusion, a style not commonly heard in games released for the NES or Famicom. Because Kagayama knew children would listen to the music in the games he worked on, he wanted to make it sound as beautiful as possible, influenced by the natural environments in Shizuoka, as well as various kinds of music you listen to, such as that of George Benson. The other staff members' love for music was the most influential aspects for Kagayama. Some requested a pop sound for the music, while others requested a wide range of other genres. One designer was a fan of techno and minimalist music, and one programmer enjoyed classical music. Since players would often listen to game compositions more than once, Kagayama did not want the stage tracks to become grating and wanted the opening and ending compositions to sound dramatic, overall being careful to make sure he was writing music that just felt good. His score was also influenced by the perfect control of Gimmick that Sakai was fixated on designing. Describing the game's soundtrack as a compilation of game music, Kagayama said that making it was a test in trying to take what people generally consider to be the sound of the Famicom and kick it up a notch. Naoshi Morimoto handled the sound programming, and Kagayama described his contributions as profound and helpful in one of his goals in making the track sound more like a live performance than just compositions. The Famicom version used a variation of Sunsoft's FME7 memory management controller known as Sunsoft 5B, which, in addition to the functionality provided by the stock FME7, features a Yamaha YM2149 PSG audio chip to provide 3 additional channels for music and sound. Since the NES doesn't support extra on-cartridge audio chips, the music was adapted to only use the standard 5 sound channels of the NES in the European release. Kagayama passed away on September 5, 2025 at the age of 62, following his struggle with stomach cancer. Gimmick was released in Japan on January 31, 1992, with plans for an international release underway. The game was reviewed by Electronic Gaming Monthly in July of 1992 in North America, and a release window of the second half of 1992 was provided. However, plans for a North American localization were soon canceled. Sunsoft of America's former Vice President of Development, David Siller, claimed that the company's managers felt the game's characters were too strange or quirky, compared to cartoons by the Walt Disney Company and Warner Bros. Euphoria, The Saga suffered the same fate. However, Siller said that the two titles most likely could have been commercial successes. The international version was imported to Bergasala AB into Scandinavian countries in small amounts and was retitled Mr. Gimmick. It was released on May 19, 1993. Unlike its Japanese counterpart, this version featured 8 lives instead of 4. The version also contained downgraded music due to the lack of an expanded sound chip channel. Since the European cartridge is encoded for PAL regions, the game would not work properly on a North American NTSC NES due to graphical glitches, but an identical NTSC prototype ROM had been leaked online which functions properly. Gimmick was also ported to the PlayStation in Japan as part of Sunsoft Memorial Collection Volume 6, along with Super Spy Hunter. This version contains some sound differences from its Famicom counterpart. This collection package was made available on the PlayStation Network in Japan on December 22, 2010. The Japanese version of the game has since become a collector's item with a United Kingdom guide in 2014 listing the game as costing £320. A remake titled Gimmick, Exact Mix, developed by XA Arcadia, was released for the XA Arcadia arcade platform on December 31, 2020. That same year, IM8-Bit officially released the game's soundtrack on CD. A remaster of the original game titled Gimmick Special Edition was originally announced as releasing in 2022 for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Windows, and Xbox One. It was developed by City Connection and Empty Clip Studios, and was set to be published by City Connection in Japan and by Bitware Games in the West. A physical edition is set to release via distributor Clear River Games. In September of 2022, City Connection and Bitwave Games announced that the release of the special edition would be delayed until early 2023. On Tuesday, May 9, 2023, Swedish publisher Bitwave Games announced that Gimmick Special Edition would be released on July 6, 2023. On Thursday, June 1st, 2023, Evercade announced that they would include the original version of the game with their Sunsoft Collection Volume 1. Reception. Gimmick initially garnered lackluster interest and mixed reviews from publications like Famitsu, Electronic Gaming Monthly, and Nintendo Magazine. Sakai blamed this lack of popularity on casual players being unable to handle the difficulty, and the industry's transition to newer 16-bit consoles like the Super Famicom and Mega Drive. When Gimmick was exhibited at places like the Tokyo Toy Show, Sakai recalled that he was hoping a dealer would see Gimmick as a next-generation title developed for the original Nintendo and distribute it, only for them to lose interest once they learned it was a Famicom game. In retrospect, he joked that the game took 10 years of people to appreciate. Critics from Swedish magazine Nintendo Magazine found Gimmick to be reminiscent of Sunsoft's own Euphoria, the Saga. They felt it was ultimately an average platformer and noted the game's cute design would be appealing to children. 3 reviewers from Electronic Gaming Monthly shared their sentiments regarding the game's average quality and cute design. A 4th reviewer gave a more positive review, calling the game a sleeper hit and stating that the game becomes very challenging at the later levels and requires great technique to master. The most favorable review at the time came from Nintendo Magazine System, where the critics called it one of the best NES games they had played in a while. The reviewers highly praised the visuals, sound, and difficulty of the game, with one reviewer saying that the desire to complete the game trumps over any such problems it has. In retrospective analysis, GameSpot's Jonathan Toyad highlighted Gimmick as an underrated platformer title from the 1990s. He praised the physics and unique level design. Regarding the graphics, he stated them to be the prettiest and most detailed from the NES era. Toyad's only negative comment was regarding the extreme difficulty in reaching the final stage and good ending. He concluded that Gimmick was a labor of love from developers and found it a shame it was not released in North America. IGN listed among their top 10 NES games of all time, praising the game's physics engine and writing that its platforming excellence stands out among the console's best. All information in the video today was provided by Wikipedia.